In the UK, there's a huge opportunity to restore a barren landscape. What you're looking at is the Dartmoor National Park, a 365 square mile area. Seeing it from Google Earth, it's just a big brown patch. It's obvious that something isn't quite right here. And down on the ground, you can walk for hours and not see a single tree or bird. It's just eerily empty. But what you do see are huge cracks, scars in the landscape where the earth is falling apart and soil is eroding away. None of this is right, and the word opportunity makes it sound like we have an option to solve what's happening here. But I soon realised that if we're not proactive in restoring this landscape, it will continue to fall apart. And what's happening here on Dartmoor isn't unique. Here in Britain, this is a story which has played out across our national parks, which we often refer to as green deserts. Landscapes which are made up of a monoculture of low-lying plants with absolutely no structural or biodiversity. Today, here in Britain, we do not ask enough questions about how our landscapes look and why they look the way they do. In this video, we're going to understand what shaped them, the severity of these issues, and how we can move toward a better future. If you've never been to the southwest before, be ready for these narrow roads. If you are coming up to Dartmoor, you want to get yourself one of these. This looks exactly like the kind of thing we need. I'm going to get in. Well, thanks for coming out.
This was my commute for 20 years. So.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
To better understand this story, I've teamed up with Nick Finey. Having spent decades working on Dartmoor, she's been on the front line of farming and nature recovery and intimately understands this landscape. So one of the first things to understand about Dartmoor is that it's entirely man-made, which I know can seem quite odd when it's considered one of England's most wild and natural spaces. Good afternoon. Before man shaped this land, Dartmoor would have been a rich, thriving patchwork of grasslands, peat bogs and rainforest. Like many areas in the southwest, Dartmoor has the ideal conditions for rainforest to flourish. The numerous wet valleys receiving high volumes of rain create the perfect environment for epiphytes and bryophytes to grow. It's these life forms which layer the boulders, the stems and the branches of the trees in this habitat, making them places of wonder and beauty. Look at how amazing this branch is, right? It comes up along the tree, still going, still going, still going, and then just comes up here at the edge, just to find some light. Unlike tropical rainforests, these habitats transform with the seasons. One of my favourite times is during autumn, with the rusty golden glows and the fungi sprouting everywhere. If you do ever visit a British temperate rainforest, you'll get mixed feelings. While you're captivated by their beauty, you're also angered now that only tiny fragments remain. And that's because of a very simple reason. Humans cut them down. So that's the edge of Wistman's Wood, and just here we have a little oak tree growing. Now this is an example of how these trees can actually grow and get away. You know, it's in a bunch of these boulders, it's evaded grazing while it was young, a lonely oak wanting to join its friends. And it's not just rainforest which has suffered, peat bogs have degraded too. Peatland is the ugly cousin to temperate rainforest. While it lacks the inherent beauty and wonder of rainforest, it certainly isn't any less of a habitat, especially when it comes to ecosystem services, and how it locks in carbon and retains water. Whether if it's been drained for agriculture or extracted for fuel, peat bogs are another missing element to large parts of Dartmoor. I really wanted to start by showing you what's missing because it's all too easy just to accept the landscape for how it is today. Having empty landscapes with absolutely no trees isn't normal. This isn't something that we should accept. The land management practices aren't just depriving us of habitats like temperate rainforest, but they're driving and continuing to accelerate the degradation of the land, costing the taxpayer millions in the process. It's these stories and messages which I am so passionate about sharing. I've realised that nature restoration, that rewilding, has a storytelling problem. Being able to communicate these ideas is integral to making positive change. I'm doing this full time now, and I would love if the channel was empowered by people who believed in the messages too. You can support and join the community over on Patreon. It's really important to me that the members have a say in where the channel goes. I frequently include your questions and your ideas in these videos. There's 3 different price points, so I'm trying to keep it affordable, but all of this money goes straight back into producing these videos. I'll leave a link to this down in the description and in the comments of the video. Cheers. Going back to this Google Earth image, this big brown blob we call Dartmoor, what we're looking at here is essentially a monoculture created by selective grazing from agricultural animals. You see, when herbivores don't have any predators to keep them on their toes and they're able to roam freely, undeterred, eating whatever they like, they consume the most palatable plants. What you're looking at here is purple moorgrass. This is the plant which the animals favour the least and is now formed a vast monoculture. This was evident when heading up on the high moor. Nick took me here to better understand the condition of this landscape, and going right through the middle was what looked like a huge ditch. This was in fact an historical pathway used to extract peat, known as Black Lane.
The Black Lane was not in a hole like this. It was not dug out.
No.
This is erosion. Okay, so anywhere in a fragile environment like this that you use a lot, it starts to wear. Nowadays, what we have created, and when you look on a map, you see Black Lane is a dead straight line. So as all the water is caught by Black Lane and then absolutely cannons down into the lowlands. This is a perfect place where we would put in what we call beaver dam analogues. So we haven't got any beavers, we haven't got any willow, we haven't got any trees at all. But we would stick in stakes and we would weave in brash to try and just slow this down.
I built some of them, and it's a really fun day out.
Really nice. Okay, so this is a perfect example of what we call a head cut. You've got the ground coming down here, and then suddenly it drops away, and you can see all the roots here, and these are all, at the very edge, they're all dead, and it's the root structure that holds the soil in place. So you can see once the roots diminish, then this land is very exposed to erosion, and you can see this whole section here has been washed away. You can see where it pools here, so the water comes running off here, hits the top of this and smacks down, taking the next layer of soil away. Places like this need urgent intervention.
Do you think it can get much worse? Do you think it will get worse?
It is getting worse. It's actively getting worse. Every time it rains, it gets worse. It's in a degenerative state. Therefore, it has gone beyond a point where it can fix itself.
Without human intervention, this landscape won't recover. How do you go about fixing this?
So I think the important thing is to use the resources that you have. So one thing we have a lot of around here is stone. We've got a lot of granite. You can see in places where we're eroding down to granite. So to save energy, to save expense, we would take some of the granite from over there, and then we would stop up this head cut. And this is a severe head cut. I mean, we saw that smaller one. This is extraordinary that this is left in this state, and you can see every time I come here, bigger and bigger chunks have
fallen away.
off.
When it comes to understanding how we can solve this problem of stopping erosion and bringing back life, all we have to do is look to nature for inspiration. Herbivores are an integral part to a thriving ecosystem. Think of the bison on the prairies of North America or wildebeest on the Serengeti. In these natural systems, huge herds of herbivores move through the landscape and are governed by predators above them. There's constant movement, this continual cycle of intense disturbance and periods of rest, which allows the landscape, the soils to rebuild, recover, and everything above to thrive. This is the way that these ecosystems have evolved to function. And when you look at how man has interfered with this balance, removing apex predators, creating impassable barriers, confining the movement of animals which weren't even meant to be here in the first place, and then pumping them full of toxic chemicals to ensure they can survive in the same location for months on end, it really is no wonder that the landscape has degraded. But this mass restorative movement of animals is actually part of Dartmoor's history.
It was a huge herd of red cattle that came from from the surrounding farms. So the native cattle to Devon are the South Devons and the Ruby Red Devons, and apparently you could look onto Dartmoor and you would see this red wave, this herd moving up onto the landscape, and the people would come with them. It's called this transhumance. This huge herd arriving in a landscape and eating everything, and their feet, you know, these cloven hooves that are exquisitely designed to post as much organic matter into the soil as they consume, and they're dunging, and there's this stress, there's this sort of frenzy of fear, in a sense, because as soon as a herd arrives in a landscape, the predators start to circle, and that keeps the herd really tight and bunched up. And this is like a sports massage then for the land, this really invigorous sort of, you know, massaging of the soil, and then the predators close in and they burst that kettling effect, they take out something, and then the herd is moved on. We have to replicate that, and we do it by electric fences, with electric collars, and we see it in other countries through genuine shepherding. So with your stock, with dogs, and then closing those stock into safe spaces at night, because obviously, you know, they've got bears, they've got wolves, they're living with these predators that keep the whole system healthy. And really, however, you know, if we don't want predators back, then we have to start shepherding.
The possibilities of what Nick is discussing is huge. If Dartmoor was able to shift to produce one huge herd of shepherded animals, this would not only allow the soils and life to come back, but it would also mean that more, better quality, pesticide-free food can be produced, and there would also be greater rural employment too. It's really important to understand that Dartmoor is a massively unproductive agricultural land. A study found that if the whole of Dartmoor stopped producing food, it would result in 1 calorie less per person per day in the UK, contributing less than 3% to England's total food production. This is simply unacceptable for a 365 square mile area that's currently costing the taxpayer millions in farming subsidies. It's evident that the systems that govern Dartmoor are broken, and there needs to be a change. We've discussed how these changes might look, but how realistic are they? What do we have to do in order to make them happen? Well, firstly, there needs to be changes in policy. Farmers, landowners, the commoners need to be incentivised and paid to restore their land in the ways that we've discussed. These ideas that we've discussed of creating one huge herd and actively shepherding them through the landscape, this is a very different approach to how things have been done and how they're done today. It will take a togetherness in order to make something like this happen, and I just hope that we can unite and make these changes while the decision is still a possibility and in our hands. If you've enjoyed this video, then please leave a like on it, and if you've got this far in the video, you may as well subscribe as well. On the screen now is the Patreon, do go and check that out. If you want to keep watching the channel, check out the video as well. In the meantime, thanks for watching, leave curious.